Bazinga! I have an override switch.
If you wanna suck my dick, you gotta say it to my face. I'm autistic, and I don't get social cues.
Hey, any autistics in the audience, have you ever heard of Sheldon Cooper?
No, God! No, God, please, no!
The Big Bang Theory, another 2010s misogynistic sitcom slop that got popular because of, I don't fucking know, I don't watch TV. My parents watch it all the time and I fucking hate it. It's the most insufferable, boring shit ever with a laugh track like every 2 fucking sentences. It's full of a bunch of, again, misogynistic, insufferable nerds.
Women are the worst!
One of those characters is Sheldon Cooper, an insufferable, misogynistic, stubborn, and immature savant.
Is your womb available for rental? Penny.
These are pretty good. What flavor is this?
Mango caterpillar. What are you doing? I liked Pluto. Ergo, I do not like you.
That's like, I'm smarter than everyone here. They should fucking kiss my feet. Except no, he looks like a worm in human skin. Apparently, to both fans and detractors, you see this man and go, that's accurate autistic representation. That's like every autistic person ever, and we're not generalizing and pushing harmful stereotypes. No, yes you are. Yes you are, I can prove it. I am autistic. I'm autistic myself, actually. There's a good reason why it's called the autism spectrum and not just autism. It's because it's literally a spectrum. When you've met one autistic, you've met one autistic. Sure, people like Sheldon Cooper do exist. That's not all of us, you fucking asshat. Why do I bring this up? Well, it's because Sheldon Cooper isn't canonically autistic in the first place. He is at the best autism coded, which is kind of a problem. It's hard enough to get genuine and accurate representation in media. Most of the time I don't relate to it because it's like, again, autistic spectrum. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but people think it is, which is just, it's so annoying. It's so fucking annoying. Okay, autistic coding. I'm pretty sure you're like, what the fuck is that? Is that another term snowflakes use? No, it's not. Autistic coding is pretty much kind of like queer coding in a way. It's where people write characters with like harmful stereotypes and flanderize their sexuality or disorder, usually for the sake of comedy. It's like, oh, overly flamboyant man. He's definitely gay, but we don't have to say it because if we do, we lose money because the homophobes. We don't actually care about these minorities we're trying to represent or joke about. No, we just need these BuzzFeed articles saying Disney had the first gay character ever when it's just like a side character. It gets maybe 10 seconds of screen time. I'm fucking sick of that. Either go all in or fucking don't. And the reason I sound so mad because I am tired. I am tired of that bullshit. Speaking of homophobic trash, Doug Tenable.
Oh! What the?
Doug Tenable, the character designer known for his work on Earthworm Jim and the Neverhood, now known for regurgitating alt-right word salad propaganda on Twitter to the point he ruined his relationship with Comicsgate of all things. Comicsgate, the boomer equivalent of Gamergate. That should say enough about Doug's character. So how did this fuck, just awful person, end up making one of my favorite neurodivergent representations of all time? Armikrog is not a commentary on the autistic experience. Neither is it ableism in adulthood, in the workplace, or anything like that. If anything, it's a shitty rush game made by talented but morally questionable people restricted by the budget of a Kickstarter campaign. Literally, this is just like my speculation and interpretation of the game. Because hey, I am biased. So are like 95% of YouTubers here. Armikrog was not purposely written to represent autistic or disabled people at all, but this is my own arguably biased opinion and interpretation. I have the right to have. I can express what I think, because newsflash, fucker, free speech goes both ways. Oh, and just so you know, before you type in your hate comment down there, it actually boosts me in the algorithm, so you're actually helping me. If you really don't like my videos, just click off. It's that easy. Anyway, back to the video. Armikrog takes place on the planet Spiro 5, where immature astronauts, Tommy and his co-pilot Beak Beak, are stranded while searching for a power source for their dying home planet Ixen. While running from a monster, they wind up trapped in a fortress Armikrog, where they must use their individual abilities to figure out how to escape Armikrog, and later rescue a little orphan baby they find named P. Except P is secretly their key to saving their planet. Only problem? Tominaut's brother, Vognaut, who is long thought dead, wants P's power for himself, going as far as to killing her parents off-screen and thus starting the game's events.
I'm still alive, asshole!
Tominaut is described as someone who hasn't gotten their life all figured out yet. He's the youngest of 3 brothers in a long line of famous astronauts, to the point it's in their actual name: Tominaut, Numnaut, and Vognaut. Someone who isn't comfortable in his own role in society or skin, often putting up the act of the hero when he's not really into it. He's not really feeling it, as the trailer describes.
Tominaut, the character, is an astronaut. He's someone that's aspiring to be a hero. He tends to move in what he thinks are heroic poses. So he'll strike a pose because he's seen it before. He's seen other people in heroic situations act that way, but he's not really feeling it from the inside.
He's the kind of guy who is not quite where he'd like to be in terms of his status as an astronaut.
Yeah, this does not look good.
In promotional material hyping up the release of the game, taking the form of Tominaut's journal, he describes failing his exams again and again and again, despite arguably having an affinity for space travel and aspirations of being just like his brothers. But he's constantly talked down to, overlooked, and mistreated by his peers and authority. He's not taken seriously at all. Prologue comics only show off more of his mistreatment, detailing how he and Beak Beak first met. Taking place in one of Tominaut's semesters at the academy, he's seen struggling to comprehend the textbook to the point he's considerably behind schedule, often running late to select his co-pilot, leaving him with a blind alien dog named Beak Beak. Tominaut seems cold, telling Beak Beak that he is better off without him, leaving him alone. After a fight with one of his bullies, he's called in by his father, who berates and insults him right to his face, and not even sparing his assumed dead sons the same fate. He shuts down any of his explanations, disregarding his concerns that his co-pilot is blind, thus probably not safe to work as one, never mind with an inexperienced astronaut. Tominaut arguably makes a good point here, but the Admiral doesn't even hear it. He straight up calls every one of his attempted explanations excuses and doesn't even hear him out. Tominaut's response is quite telling. He throws his father's "don't answer that" cutoff right back at him with an annoyed, hateful glare. But instead of arguing back, he only responds with, "I'm not great like you." He doesn't argue that Beak Beak being paired up with him could lead to a disaster. He doesn't argue that he shouldn't talk like that about his supposedly dead sons. He just shuts down the conversation with a defeated, I know. It's as if this has happened before many, many times, and he's used to not being listened to. And Beak Beak isn't exactly being treated any better. He's made fun of by his peers for not being selected as a co-pilot because of his blindness, and even being called a nothing because even the Academy's worst astronaut wouldn't pick him. In his efforts to help Tominaut by sewing up his vandalized pants, he injures his paws because, well, he has vision problems. It doesn't help that the coach essentially calls him blind and lame, mocking him that he can't do a simple push-up because of his injuries. Which, I mean, just let the dude sit this one out. Like, he was trying to do something nice for Tominaut, and you just go insult him, dude. The comic ends with Tominaut and Beak Beak seeing eye to eye, finding comfort in each other in their roles as outcasts. The story, despite its many plot holes in the larger Armikrog canon, resonates pretty heavily with me. Someone who is, well, autistic. Tominaut, well, not being stated to have any mental disorder, really resonates with me as someone who has autism and ADHD, someone who had trouble thriving in the traditional education system, to be completely honest. Despite being conventionally smart enough to at least get a nearly 4.0 GPA in college, I find myself having to bust my ass for hours on end to the point of tears just to barely comprehend some of the text I was given. Never mind math class. Oh god, it was like reading an alien language. Like every time I try to see anything like slightly more complex than a times table, it literally just turns to this. Like this static screen you see here, that's my brain. I literally can't think. I don't know why, but you've seen everything I've done on this channel, running merch stores and decompiling video game files into individual assets and textures and MP3 files, draw most of the art, do all the editing, writing, and publishing. I say I almost got like a 4.0 GPA, and you're like, but you're not stupid. Wow. It's like I have an intellectual disorder that the current public education system isn't made to accommodate, and thus only stifles my actual talents. Just because you test poorly on a paper does not mean you're stupid or know nothing about the subject in question. Sometimes the school system is failing you. It isn't made for everyone, and especially not anyone that doesn't fit the stereotypical mold. Doesn't help that, even with the improvements in treatment, kids that fall under special education are still being abused and neglected to the point that some schools still utilize literal solitary confinement and physical abuse like it's an okay thing to do, when such things have literally led to the suicides and death of neurodivergent kids. But no, I'm a snowflake for asking you not to smack gum in my ear because it's very loud and distracting and I'm trying to get work done. Or I'm sensitive when I'm asking you not to call me retarded because it takes me a bit to understand what you're saying or understand sarcasm. Fuck you. Like I said, Tamina is very relatable to me as an autistic kid, now adult, that struggled and obviously failed to fit the expectations always given by society. Guess what? Not all people who are born as female like being walking stereotypes ripped out from the 1950s meant to cook and clean for their hubbies. Ugh. And not all autistics are selfish savants that don't know how to function outside of a paper bag. But a lot of people under the neurodivergent spectrum, autistic, ADHD, feel the need to fit the mold neurotypical people set for themselves and others. Ever heard of masking? It's exactly that. It's where neurodivergent people force themselves to ignore their needs, their wants, their desires, their comfort level, just so they're not judged or abused for being born different, to the point of burning themselves out, using drugs and or alcohol to cope with all the stress they put themselves through, to the point of addiction, self-harm, and suicide.
What the hell's going on here? Is it anonymous or are we saying our names? What's wrong with you people? I couldn't get anything worse. I'd need to drink to be in this room to talk about not drinking. It's funny, but it's sad, right?
If you research why autistic people, along with those of us with ADHD, struggle with drinking problems, is because drinking makes us feel normal.
Being an autistic person uses drugs because of autism. I'm hypersensitive to a lot of things and hyposensitive, less sensitive to others, but especially with hypersensitivity, I'm just so overwhelmed all the time, and that fed into a lot of extreme anxiety and stuff. Once I found things like opioids, like OxyContin and heroin, that kind of thing, those things became my drugs of choice. I experimented with a lot of things to try and find what worked, but that was the first thing that really seemed like medicine and calm down my nervous system. That works better to me than a lot of the more quote unquote legit medications that have been prescribed.
Because I'm 43 years old now, and I wasn't diagnosed until I was 36. It felt like all these walls that were in my head fell down, and they protected me from the world. Did these walls, it protected me from sights and sounds and all sorts of things, because you got so much energy as a kid, and then you're told to sit down in high school and learn, and the information was just overwhelming. And I didn't realise I was being overwhelmed. I didn't realise I was struggling. I didn't realise I couldn't talk to people. And so one day when I found alcohol, I was like, wow, this is like the greatest thing in the world.
Because guess what? Bottling up your emotions is not a healthy way to live, regardless of if you're neurotypical or not. Tamina's behavior can be described as masking or interpreted as such. He has a passion for space travel, that's obvious. He isn't happy with his current situation, with his peers and family who don't listen to him, ignore, or straight up abuse him. I'm not pulling this out of my ass either. In the trailers, they literally describe Tamina's idol animations as him striking a pose to keep up this hero-esque facade.
He tends to move in what he thinks are heroic poses. So he'll strike a pose because he's seen it before and seen other people in heroic situations act that way, but he's not really feeling it from the inside.
You can tell it ain't him. There's no real emotion. He's just kind of It's only when he cares for baby P, his animations patting her on the back and caring for her, he lets his stoic side slip and shows off his genuine true self for a little bit. P is, well, pretty much a gender swap baby Mario, annoying cry and all, but he just takes her on without any question. Behind the mask, Tommyknot is a kind-hearted, nerdy little goofball that will do anything to help anyone that needs his help. Loyal to friends and family until they directly hurt or harm him. He will tell you when you screwed up. While he tries to reason with the evil Vognot, it's a moment where he kills Beak and threatens to do the same to Baby P that Tommyknot finally snaps, stops trying to reason with him. Even then, he doesn't even try to hurt Vog, he just tries to disarm him and save P. But is he celebrated for his efforts? No. He's just that nerdy little kid that can't measure up to his brothers. Beak has a visual disability. While not totally blind due to his visor, he's pretty much legally blind, injuring himself while sewing Tommyknot's pants, but despite it being pretty close to his face. He sees in pretty much negative colors, yet everyone assumes that he'll work well as a co-pilot without proper accommodations, and in a job that, I don't know, kind of requires perfect vision. I'm not saying that blind people shouldn't be hired, quite the opposite. It's just that he is assumed to measure up to his able-bodied and not visually impaired peers, and then mocked because he can't, because, I don't know, he's disabled. Able-bodied people often assume that people with visible and invisible disabilities that cannot work in the same way as they can are lazy, when that, again, is inaccurate. Disabled, neurodivergent, and hundreds of other people need certain accommodations to properly thrive in the workplace in order to work well and not force themselves into mental ruts or injuries that could possibly disable them more. Beak does not get anything outside of the sci-fi equivalent of reading glasses and is assumed to be okay working in an environment not suited for blind people, risking for both his and Tommyknot's lives by no fault of his own, but the Academy's carelessness. Tommyknot and Beak, while fictional, are people with lives and personalities that are disregarded and treated like shit because they don't fit the stereotypical mold of the normal person, in quotations. Beak is a casual, chill guy that lives day by day, can be goofy at times, sure, but is still loyal and will take things seriously only when he needs to. He doesn't consider himself that outlandish of a person either, saying, because, guess what? Neurodivergent and disabled people aren't spectacles to gawk at. Who would have thought? This is why, despite being totally accidental, Armikrog is probably one of my favorite representations of neurodivergent and disabled characters, as of yet. They're pretty much relatable to me, and a whole lot more relatable than Sheldon fucking Cooper. I'd rather be compared to Tommyknot than Sheldon any day, even if he was made by a rather shitty person. Yes, I know that this is all headcanon and speculation, but when we only get representation like Sheldon Cooper or I am a surgeon, you'll try to grasp for anything else. Like, imagine if all TV shows depicted white cis men like in Idiocracy, to a point where everyone considered them stupid, incompetent slobs, insulting and harassing them, physically attacking them, barring them from jobs because that's how they're depicted on TV. Who cares if it's a stereotype that isn't accurate? Welcome to my world.